Buckle up, buttercups. Hey, everybody. Rex Bear, Leak Project. How the heck are you? Beautiful day today out here in Southern Colorado. It's in the 50s today, middle of December. I mean, can you believe it? Sunshine, absolutely gorgeous. But that's not what we're here to talk about. First of all, I want to say thank you for being patient. I was supposed to get started a few minutes ago. And wow, a lot is going on right now. I've got 25 stories that I want to share with you, 25 headlines, breaking news, breaking headlines. Before we get started, though, if you just do me a quick favor and hit the bell for all notifications, make sure you're subscribed. And we have two live formats that we go when we go live now. We go live via vertical and horizontal. That's a new feature that YouTube offers. So, like if you're watching it on your phone, you can get the full screen on the vertical, or if you're watching it on your big screen or your television or your monitor, you can watch it horizontal. So if you're watching it in vertical on your big screen, and you're like, wait a second, I don't like the format, just click on the other link and it'll take you to the widescreen. But how's your day going? Because I'll tell you what, the information that I found. So let's just jump right in. If you haven't yet, though, do yourselves a favor, get the Gladiator Barley and the Boomer Boost from boomerboost.com. They've got one of the biggest sales of the year right now going on there. And if you use the code REX20, you'll get 20% off your order. And you can set it up for auto ship, so you can get you can stack the discounts. I've been taking the Boomer Boost and the Gladiator Barley now for like 5 years. I think this stuff is amazing. It's my go-to for supplements. And take the 30-day challenge. You'll thank me later. Okay, so the first news piece that I wanted to share with you, very, very interesting. I've always been fascinated with the moon. I still wonder sometimes if our moon is like the original ark. You know, I mean, it seems like it's been beaten to hell and back with cosmic radiation and meteorites and asteroids and whatever else has hit this thing. Some people believe it is actually a piece of the Earth. Some people think it's artificial. I'm 50-50, so I wouldn't be surprised either way. But check this out. This is very interesting. A giant unexplained, and this is from Futura, a giant unexplained heat source on the moon's far side. Scientists have detected a massive heat anomaly beneath the moon's far side, an area we never see from Earth. The heat signature appears far stronger than expected and may be linked to potentially ancient volcanic activity. There's also speculation that there's a giant slab of granite under there, so the cosmic radiation heats it up more on the surface. But potentially radioactive material, something not yet understood about the moon's interior. And what makes this significant is that the far side was believed to be largely geologically dead. So this discovery challenges long-held assumptions and raises new questions about lunar formation, hidden geothermal processes, and what may still be active beneath the moon's crust. You can go to Live Science also. They've got some information on this, and they talk about how there could potentially be a granite piece. But like, what if there's something else down there? I mean, maybe there's, I don't know, breakaway civilization. Who knows? It's really weird. Have you heard about the maskins on the moon? So there's also what has been noted as maskins, which are these massive gravitational anomalies on the moon also. And why did the moon ring like a bell for over 30 minutes after one of NASA's spacecraft allegedly landed on it many years ago? The moon is strange. The moon is very, very strange. So I will keep you updated. If anything new comes to light, I will share that with you. Very interesting. But also what is extremely interesting, I don't know if you read this or not from IFL Science, fresh from capturing images of 3I Atlas, NASA's Maven suffers an anomaly and is no longer communicating with Earth. So weird. NASA's Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution, which is called Maven Orbiter, is no longer communicating with Earth after an unknown anomaly put it out of contact with NASA's Deep Space Network. So this thing, so November, we go back to November of 2013, and NASA's Maven spacecraft was launched into space, beginning its long journey to Mars. In September of 2014, it entered Mars orbit and began its mission to study the planet's upper atmosphere, ionosphere, and the interactions the atmosphere has with solar wind, leading to its escape of the Martian atmosphere. For over a decade, it's worked just fine. It's taken measurements of the Martian atmosphere, and it's relayed those findings to Earth via deep space network, NASA's International Array of Giant Radio Antennas that communicates with interplanetary missions. And this year, for example, the spacecraft detected the first direct signals or signs of sputtering in which atoms are knocked out of the top of a planet's atmosphere by energetic charged particles. So it's working fine. Everything's going great. And then it observes 3I Atlas, and now we have no contact with this orbiter. So I've got two things that are going through my mind right now. One is a deliberate cover-up. It picked something up that the powers that be didn't want it to release to the public, so they shut it off from the public view, still having access to it with private communication and potentially top secret classified information. Or 3I Atlas did something to the craft to cause it to shut down. And that's just as bizarre. Like, did it get hit with a plasma filament? Were there some lasers that turned it off? I mean, did ET phone home and say, Maven, shut off? I don't know, but it's really, really bizarre. So we'll keep you updated on that as well. And in other news, now let's get to the not so exciting news. Unless you're a warmonger, and then, you know, if you make money off of if you profit off of war. NATO ally declares the United States a threat. Did you hear about this? So in a stunning development, a NATO-aligned country publicly labeled the United States as a security risk. Denmark did. What's up, Denmark? I thought we were friends. Well, the justification centers on unpredictability, internal political instability, and shifting foreign policy priorities. This is a rare public fracture within the alliance and reflects growing concerns that U.S. commitments may no longer be reliable. The statement underscores deeper tensions inside NATO and raises serious questions about alliance cohesion at a time of escalating global conflict. You can read this at Newsweek. Let me give you a little bit more details on this. So NATO ally says Trump's U.S. poses security threat. Don't you love it how they have to put Trump U.S. in there? It's like, really? So anyway, I just think it's ridiculous. But Denmark has for the first time identified the United States as one of the security threats facing the country in an annual risk assessment published on Wednesday. The report from the Danish Defense Intelligence Service revealed that the U.S. is now using its economic and technological strength as an instrument of power, including toward allies and partners. This report also concluded that uncertainty over U.S.'s security role in Europe was likely to spur Russia to intensify its hybrid attacks against NATO members, which have already accused Moscow of repeated drone and aircraft breaches of its airspace. I talked to somebody, I'm actually friends with somebody that does volunteer work, Nanu. He does volunteer work for the military in Denmark, I think. It's either Denmark or Norway. Yeah, Denmark. And I asked him about like the drones and stuff, the drone incursions that they had over there and the drones over a lot of military sites and stuff. He said he couldn't talk about it publicly because unless it's available already on the internet, it's still considered classified. But I will keep tabs with him, and any information I can get from him, I will, you know, as long as I can share it with you, I will be happy to do so, because I definitely want to know what some of these mystery drones are. I'm not convinced that they're all Russian, and I'm not convinced that they're all some type of adversary drones. They could potentially be from a breakaway civilization or a defense contractor that we don't know about. But it definitely seems like a lot of these drone incursions are potentially Russian because the locations and the timing of the observations. And there's been several militaries that have actually shot at drones over their airspace. And according to the news articles, they haven't been able to shoot them down. So that's really interesting. And in other news, this is from Live Science. Astronomers discover skyscraper-sized asteroids hidden in the sun's glare, and it's moving at a near record pace. They call these asteroids twilight asteroids. One in particular, dubbed 2025 SC79, was obscured by the sun's glare until an astronomer pointed the dark energy camera at it, highlighting the potential dangers of unseen asteroids. And this asteroid is approximately 2,300 feet wide. It's whizzing through the solar system at a near record-breaking pace. Meanwhile, everybody's eyes are at 3I Atlas. These asteroids are of extreme concern. So, dubbed 2025 SC79, it loops around the sun once every 128 days, giving it the second fastest asteroid orbit in the solar system. It is also only the second known space object that orbits entirely inside of Venus's orbit, making it pretty close to home, occasionally even crossing the orbit of Mercury. Now, Scott Shepard, he's an astronomer at the Carnegie Science Research Institute in DC, first spotted this asteroid September 27th. The asteroid was obscured by the sun's glare, making it exceptionally difficult to observe, according to a statement released by Carnegie Science. Spotting hidden asteroids like 2025 SC79 is important, obviously, to ensure that no potentially hazardous space rock sneaks up on our planet without us noticing. In other news, NATO chief warns Europe to prepare for war with Russia. The head of NATO issued one of the starkest warnings in decades, saying Europe must prepare for a possible war with Russia. This includes ramping up weapons productions, civilian preparedness, and long-term defense planning. The language represents a clear shift from deterrence to expectation. NATO is now openly acknowledging that large-scale conflict is no longer unthinkable. It is being planned for. Yeah, like you remember France? Well, we'll get into that in a whole other podcast. This is also very interesting. In other news, Bulgarian government resigns. The Bulgarian government resigned, folks. Like, wild, right? Listen to this. Amid political crisis, Bulgaria's government has collapsed following months of political deadlock, corruption allegations, and internal divisions. This adds to instability across Eastern Europe during a time of heightened regional tension. With snap elections likely, Bulgaria joins a growing list of European nations struggling with governance as economic pressures, war, and public distrust strain political systems. My question is, do you think something like that could happen in the U.S.? Do you think that the U.S. could ever, do you think that people could ever protest so much in the U.S. that the entire government would resign? I don't think so. I think that they would bust out the happy camps and they would round people up this is my opinion, but I don't think that they would let that happen in the land of the free. They're like, well, we ain't so free now. I mean, that's wild. An entire government resigns because of protests. They'll just bring out SWAT teams here, in my opinion. But in other news, Washington National Guard evacuates over 1,000 homes. In Burlington, Washington, floodwaters forced the evacuation of more than 1,000 homes. Rivers exceeded historic levels following powerful atmospheric river storms. The National Guard was deployed to assist with rescues and evacuations. Officials warned this may not be a one-time event. I think there's 100,000 people or more that could potentially be affected or are affected by these atmospheric rivers in Washington. I've got family in Washington. I've got family right on the coast, and I've got family further inland. And I was talking to my folks yesterday, and they said, like, they live right on the water, and they get a ton of rain where they live, like, constantly. It's always raining out there. Well, not always, but a lot. And I said, well, how are you guys doing where you're at? They're fine. But just in Aberdeen, which is less than 30 miles away, Aberdeen is dealing with flooding. And 100,000 people affected by these floods, that's pretty substantial. And it seems to be the new norm with weather, that weather is extreme. Death Valley. We've got another lake that popped up in Death Valley. The driest place on earth previously is now getting unprecedented rains. We had flooding here in Pagosa Springs earlier this year. But where's the snow? We've had one snowstorm out here in Pagosa this year. So it's so much warmer, yet the precipitation is still quite extreme. So I'll keep you updated on that. The Pacific Northwest faces catastrophic flood threats. Meteorologists are warning of potentially catastrophic flooding. Well, it is catastrophic. With rainfall levels approaching once-in-a-century events, infrastructure, dams, and levees are under extreme strain. Emergency planners say this may be a preview of a new normal driven by climate volatility, population growth in flood-prone areas, and aging infrastructure. Let's jump on over to Antarctica for a minute. Hundreds of earthquakes have been detected at Antarctica's Doomsday Glacier. Scientists have detected hundreds of seismic events beneath the Thwaites Glacier, often called the Doomsday Glacier. These quakes suggest the ice is fracturing from below, accelerating instability. And if this Doomsday Glacier collapses, scientists believe global sea levels could rise several feet, impacting coastal cities worldwide. This is one of the most critical climate tipping points scientists are monitoring. Now, they've been saying for decades that the coast is going to flood. But, I think there's a place in New Hampshire? Maybe it's not New Hampshire. Somewhere in New England, there is a Knights Templar carving right on the coast from, I think, the 1600s, and it's still there. So 400 years ago, almost, it hasn't flooded there. And we've been, the mainstream news has been telling us that we need to be prepared for catastrophic flooding off the coast because of global warming. And it hasn't happened yet. So take that with a grain of salt. But it is interesting to read about how this glacier is dealing with all of these earthquakes right now. And it makes me question what else is going on, behind the scenes, under the crust, the actual core of the earth, the way that it's slowed down substantially. Recent studies suggest that it may even potentially reverse. The aurora borealis in the lower 48 states, seeing all these incredible sky anomalies, the sun acting up, the magnetosphere getting weaker. And now we're dealing with more extreme weather on a regular basis. And it does seem to be the new norm. So that makes me question, if we're going to be dealing with these catastrophic floods on a yearly basis, catastrophic fires, and major weather events, how is civilization going to adapt? How are we going to adapt with our culture, with our buildings and our houses and our infrastructure? And we have we have a lot to think about. So I think instead of asking these supercomputers monotonous questions, or maybe we should focus using these supercomputers and these quantum computers to help solve some of these problems. I mean, if we can ask, why not? In other news, Turkey. I've got probably 150 turkeys around my house right now. I'm not even exaggerating. Probably at least 100 to 150. Wild turkeys, super cool. Love them. They're really noisy. They'll wake you up. They laughing and talking to each other. Very noisy, but I'm not bringing up Turkey to talk about my turkeys. Well, maybe for a minute, but Turkey, the nation, the newest city, faces a major earthquake risk, according to the latest assessments. Turkey's newest urban development sits directly atop a dangerous fault line. Engineers are warning of a major earthquake that could cause catastrophic casualties. This comes as Turkey continues to recover from deadly quakes in recent years, and the situation highlights the risks of rapid urban expansion without adequate seismic planning. Now let's talk about news here in the US and in Texas. ICE arrests surge in Texas. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrests have surged across Texas amid intensified border enforcement. Authorities say operations focus on criminal networks and repeat offenders, but critics argue broader enforcement is catching nonviolent individuals. This surge has reignited debate over border security, immigration policy, and humanitarian concerns. It's pretty intense out there right now. My, how things have changed just over the past 2 years, substantially. This is a bit frightening, this next news piece that I'm going to share with you, especially if you're a Chinese whistleblower. Chinese whistleblower hunted in Texas using U.S. technology. A former Chinese official who exposed corruption is now living in Texas, but reports say Beijing-linked actors are using U.S.-based technology platforms to track and intimidate him. The case highlights growing concerns over transnational repression, digital surveillance, and how authoritarian states exploit global tech infrastructure. Yeah, I want to share with you a little bit more about that. Let me go to the original article. Because the way that they're doing it, the way that they're tracking him is insane. So this is from Doomsday. In Texas, a former Chinese official targeted by Beijing surveillance finds refuge. Or does he? The Chinese government is using an increasingly powerful tool to control and monitor its own officials. Surveillance technology, much of it originating in the U.S., an Associated Press investigation has found. Among its targets is Li Shuanglang, a Chinese former vice mayor hunted by Beijing with the help of surveillance technology. Li communications were monitored, his assets were seized, and his movements were followed in police databases. More than 40 friends and relatives, including his pregnant daughter, were identified and detained back in China. Deep in the Texas countryside, Li has now found refuge with members of a Chinese church living in exile after fleeing from China like Li. Li and members of the church are building a new life, the article says, thousands of miles from China. They cook, eat, and study together. But even in the United States, Li worries he's being watched. Strange men stalk him. Spies have looked for him. He carries multiple phones, surveillance technologies that power China's anti-corruption crackdown at home and abroad, a campaign critics say is used to stifle dissidents and exact retribution on perceived enemies. Yeah, like imagine everything that you do, everywhere you go, you're being tracked. Whether they're watching you on your phone, your smart TV, your smart appliances, the technologies that are embedded in many cars now. And by 2027, they want to have cameras in every car. They want to have sensors in every car so they can see what you're doing all the time, tracking you 24/7. But what happens if those technologies get hacked? What happens if an adversary can use the technologies that we built that are supposed to protect us against us? I mean, could you imagine leaving China, leaving and worrying for your life because you said something against the official government or something that they didn't want you to say, and now they've got your whole family locked up? And it also shows the reach that they have. If they can spy on their own citizens in the States with U.S. technologies, buckle up, Buttercup. We ain't in Kansas anymore. But if you are in Kansas, they're going to know. Wow. That's frightening. It'll make you think twice about saying anything negative towards them as well, won't it? In other news, the European Union freezes Russian assets indefinitely. The European Union has indefinitely frozen Russian assets, blocking veto attempts by Hungary and Slovakia. The funds may be redirected towards Ukraine's reconstruction and defense. This marks a major escalation in economic warfare and signals that Europe is preparing for a long-term confrontation with Moscow. And I don't know how much more Moscow is going to allow this to happen without serious retribution. There could be very dire consequences on both sides following these steps of taking Russian assets, selling them, and then taking that money and funding the Ukraine war. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me. It's mind-boggling. I am surprised that NATO and Russia are not in complete war right now. I'm kind of surprised, especially because the U.S. has moved, strategically speaking, substantially out of the region now in the Caribbean. Somebody said the other day in a comment, it was a very interesting comment. It was just an opinion. I mean, obviously we can't verify this, but what if the U.S. knows of conflict in Europe and they want to pull as many troops out as they can because it's going to get real nasty out there, like potentially nuclear? That was basically what they said. They said they're pulling their troops out of Europe because it's going to go nuclear. That's just speculation right now. And let's hope it stays that way. But I wouldn't be surprised. And in other news, Trump has signed an executive order limiting state AI regulation. A new executive order aims to prevent individual U.S. states from independently regulating artificial intelligence. The goal is centralized federal oversight, but critics warn this could weaken safeguards and empower large tech firms. The move intensifies the debate over AI governance, control, and accountability. And how would you like to have your home, or what about the neighborhood you grew up in? Maybe your family's still there. Maybe your parents are still there. Maybe you have relatives there, and it's a nice community. It's been pretty safe, pretty healthy, pretty clean, and pretty peaceful. And then next thing you know, they're building this huge data center just a few blocks away, where the noise and the potential environmental pollution could be extreme. I've seen a multitude of reports where people complain about not being able to sleep, not being able to think properly, being next to these data centers, having to change their windows and their siding and go sleep in the basement, and they still can't sleep. And they talk about this low hum, and it messes with their circadian rhythm, they claim. I mean, you thought it would be bad to live next to a cell phone tower, which I don't want to live next to a cell phone tower. Now imagine living next to a dozen cell phone towers with a giant data center that's extracting water that was originally going to be used for farmers, and the pollution gets back into the environment. Oh, it's a great idea. I think potentially AI has already woke up and not necessarily full takeover, but has taken over certain minds and certain corporations to push certain agendas, where AI will eventually become your supreme leader. Ahriman is working overtime right now. Look him up, Ahriman, Rudolf Steiner. Look into it a little bit if you haven't already. Very interesting. He's not evil. Ahriman is not evil. He's materialistic. Very materialistic. And with everything that's going on with our technologies right now, with as amazing as it is, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Are people building their replacement when it comes to artificial intelligence and robots? When you have superpowers and super rich saying there's too many people, but in the next 10 years, we're going to have 1 billion humanoid robots. Things that make you go, But then when you realize each one of those robots that gets produced, that person that says there's too many people, but we need 1 billion robots, they get paid every time they build one of these robots. Imagine being somebody that builds an entire fleet of robots. You don't think you're going to have backdoor access to all of these robots? So if you want your own secret robot empire, what are we going to do now today, Pink? What are we going to do today, Pinky? What are we going to do today, Brain? What do we do every day, Pinky? Figure out how to take over the world. Anyway, in other news, a new peace talk, or a new peace proposal, discussions with Zelensky and Rubio and Hegseth. The Ukrainian president, Zelensky, confirmed talks with senior U.S. figures about potential peace pathways. While no ceasefire was announced, the discussions signal increased behind-the-scenes diplomacy. The challenge remains bridging fundamental differences between Kyiv and Moscow. And then Kremlin signaled rejection of the new peace proposal. Russia has indicated dissatisfaction with recent peace proposals following U.S.-Ukraine talks. Moscow continues to insist on territorial concessions, while Ukraine rejects them outright. The response suggests negotiations remain far from resolution. And while this is taking place, Ukraine intensifies drone attacks. Ukraine has significantly increased long-range drone attacks against Russian infrastructure. The strikes demonstrate how low-cost unmanned systems are reshaping modern warfare. Russia has been forced to redeploy air defenses deeper into its territory, revealing vulnerabilities. And it's not just Russia and Ukraine. Now it's Thailand and Cambodia. We have more conflict, more war. Meanwhile, 3i Atlas is cruising through the solar system, freaking everybody out. People are saying it's either just a space rock or it's a spaceship. It's amazing, the conflict of interest there. Space rock, spaceship, flying space ball of ice. It's maneuvering and incredibly fashioned to where it lines up in the perfect Goldilocks zone of Jupiter, the gravitational zone of Jupiter called the Hill Zone, where it could release probes that wouldn't be that would be locked to the Jupiter gravity versus our sun's gravity, Sol. Now we've got Cambodia and Thailand. Cambodia has unveiled suicide drones modeled after those used in Ukraine, and the development confirms that drone warfare is spreading rapidly across the globe, lowering the barrier to entry for advanced military capabilities and changing conflict dynamics worldwide. In the near future, I wouldn't be surprised if everybody has a drone that is constantly following them. Yeah. I talked about that a few weeks ago, and then the next day I saw a movie where it was literally like that. Everybody had a drone following them. It was like, what the hell is going on here? Went over the Twilight asteroid. We went over that. Scientists warn of a massive Twilight asteroid that is difficult to detect because it approaches from the sun's direction. Such an object could evade early warning systems and potentially cause catastrophic damage. And the discovery highlights major gaps in planetary defense. And if you like to fly, as I've told you before, last time I flew was to Alaska. Well, I actually flew back from Alaska, but I was checking my watch for radiation on the when I was up in the air, and it was 4.2 microsieverts per hour. To put that into perspective, when I was on the ground at the airport, it was at like either 0.06 or 0.08. So it went from 0.08 to 4.2, which is approximately 60 times higher in the air. So not only do we have a heightened cosmic radiation, but also we've got more extreme radiation from the sun right now in a weakened magnetosphere. And on top of that, let me add some more happiness for all of you that like to travel by airplane on a regular basis. A new study found airline passengers may be exposed to extremely high levels of ultrafine particle pollution inside aircraft cabins. The particles are linked to jet fuel exhaust and raise health concerns, especially for frequent flyers and flight crews. Be prepared, not scared. In other news, Germany confronted Russia over sabotage and cyber attacks. Germany summoned Russia's ambassador over allegations of sabotage, cyber attacks, and election interference. Officials describe these actions as part of a broader hybrid warfare campaign targeting Europe's infrastructure and political stability. Germany has made it very clear that they want to be the spearhead of NATO. They want to lead the way. And Germany just ordered 200 plus new howitzers for almost $3.5 billion, $3.4 billion. Germany is preparing to order over 200 advanced RCH-155 self-propelled howitzers, signaling a major rearmament effort. The move reflects Europe's shift towards long-term military readiness and sustained defense production. What's going on with China? China is building an electromagnetic kill zone. Sounds like a video game. China is reportedly constructing an electromagnetic warfare zone in the South China Sea, capable of disrupting ships, aircraft, drones, and communications. This could dramatically alter the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific and challenge U.S. and allied operations. Do you remember just a few weeks ago, the U.S., they were performing military operations in the South China Sea, and the same day, 2 aircraft crashed in the China Sea, a helicopter and a jet within hours apart. Speculation immediately on the news after that happened. Was the CCP somehow involved? They deny it. What do you think? User error or hybrid warfare? Have you heard of the 731 unit that Japan had during World War II? I mean, the unit 731, I haven't studied it in depth, studied it a little bit. And let's just say your worst nightmares are reality in that unit during World War II. If you study the stuff that they did, the experiments, it is horrific. It's like Hellraiser on steroids. Well, China is currently urging international prosecution over Japan's World War II era Unit 731 war crimes. This move revives historical grievances and adds tension to already strained regional relations. And do you know why I think they're doing this? In my opinion, they're doing this because this happens just a week or so after Japan's prime minister said, we will defend Taiwan. We will defend their interests. Basically is what she said. Not exactly, but that just pissed off the CCP. I mean, they've gone to the UN. They have threatened Japan substantially after that. So now we see these tensions between Japan, Taiwan, and China, the CCP. And so now they want to push the 731 atrocities out into the public to remind people how wicked some of these war crimes were. And to me, that seems very political. I mean, I don't think they pick now out of the blue. I think there's some very political moves for that, and that would be my guess. And in other news, China has expelled a Philippine aircraft near disputed atolls. China says it expelled Philippine aircraft and vessels near disputed South China Sea atolls. The incident raises the risk of confrontation and could trigger U.S. treaty obligations within the Philippines. With the Philippines, the U.S. did just, the President Trump did just pass another bill that is showing strong ties with Taiwan. What was that bill? Let me look that up here real quick. Trump passes Taiwan bill. Signed the Taiwan Assurance Implementation Act, TAIA, into law early December, a significant pro-Taiwan bill reinforcing U.S.-Taiwan ties by requiring regular State Department reviews to remove self-imposed limits on official interactions and strengthen Taiwan's defense, showing strong bipartisan support. What it does, the act mandates the State Department to review and report to Congress on removing existing restrictions on U.S.-Taiwan engagement every 5 years, bolstering Taiwan's self-defense and participation in international groups. This is the first such pro-Taiwan legislation enacted under his second administration, building on the Taiwan Assurance Act of 2020, and underscores strong bipartisan backing for deeper U.S.-Taiwan relations. Do you remember when Hegseth had that meeting where he called generals and admirals and top brass from all over the world to show up? And there was a lot of speculation, like, why, what's going on? And he said in that meeting, get rid of your beards, be in shape, and China is going to be a whole other discussion. Like, they're preparing for something really big, folks. And we're seeing the signs right now. We're seeing the signs in the heavens with 3i Atlas, in my opinion. I don't think it's a coincidence that all of this is taking place at the same time that 3i Atlas does this incredible flyby of our solar system. Now, I think the universe is also conscious. So it's like universal consciousness. So I'm not saying that it's an alien spacecraft flying through our solar system, but the timing is very interesting. And if we look at, historically speaking, times of war, rumors of war, and harbingers of doom, asteroids and comets are often these harbingers of doom. But we have to remind ourselves, every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So the building blocks for life are also on these incredible asteroids and comets. So are you a half glass full or a half glass empty kind of person? And you know how U.S. recently seized a Venezuelan oil tanker? Well, now the U.S. seizes a Nigerian-owned supertanker. U.S. authorities seized a Nigerian-owned supertanker suspected of oil theft and sanctions violations. The seizure highlights tightening enforcement in global energy markets and growing scrutiny of maritime trade routes. In other news, Mexico slaps 50% tariffs on Indian imports. Mexico imposed 50% tariffs on Indian exports worth roughly $1 billion. The move signals rising global trade fragmentation and the return of aggressive economic nationalism. So that's today's stories, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you appreciated the time you've spent here with me today. I've certainly appreciated the time I've spent here with you. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section. Let me read through the comments. I haven't had a chance to yet. Got some awesome people in here. Hey, everybody. How the heck are you? So my favorite news out of all of this, just as far as excitement and like, wow, that's wild. That's the most fascinating to me personally is the moon anomaly that they detected on the dark side of the moon. It's like 15 or 18 degrees hotter than the rest of the moon. Like this one spot on the moon on the dark side. Like what the hell is that about? And then also I found it very interesting, the news article about the NASA spacecraft that suffered an anomaly and it is no longer communicating with Earth after it detects 3I Atlas. Like that's weird. That is really, really weird. Is it just a coincidence? Like, oh yeah, it worked for 12 years. It worked 13 years just fine. And then all of a sudden it observes 3I Atlas and now it doesn't work anymore and we're not communicating with it. Like, what are we missing here? There's a big piece to the story that we need to know. I want to know. Tell me what's going on. That's wild. So those are my two favorite pieces, the bizarre moon anomaly and the Maven spacecraft anomaly. What about you? And do me a favor, if you would. If you haven't checked us out on Rumble yet, subscribe to our Rumble page, Leak Project on Rumble. And if you want rapid fire news, like 10 minutes or less, you want to know all the news, like the most important news of that day, but you've only got 5 or 10 minutes, subscribe to our other YouTube channel, ESN, IC News, the premium choice for important headlines, ESN. I will leave a link in the video description box. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Thank you. And be the change you want to see.